Hello world, this is the next instalment of my vinyl collection. We are on cue, going all the way up to about halfway through the S's. I don't know about you, but M and S seem to be the places in my record collection and CD collection where I seem to have the most, particularly the letter S. So I think I've got just a good handful here to show you. Let's get on with it, shall we? This is Queen's Night at the Opera. It's got a little sticker mark there. Don't like it, but anyway, the album is absolutely brilliant. It's not Queen's first album, but it's the one that I suppose would have sort of brought Queen right onto sort of everybody's radar, because it's got Bohemian Rhapsody, You're My Best Friend, and sort of some real perennial Queen numbers on here, and it is fantastic. I love it. I didn't like the sequel, A Day at the Races, as much, but it's still good. It's still got, has it got Somebody to Love on it? Yes, it's got Somebody to Love on it. It's good. It's great. News of the World. I remember my brother had this album, but this is a 2000s reissue, as are all of these here. Queen Greatest Hits. I think I've shown this in a record cleaning video. It is knackered. God knows where it came from. I think it came from just like a charity shop bin for 20p or something. And yeah, it's knackered. But it cleaned up. It's crackly, but it plays, you know. It's one of those sort of 20 greatest hit style record things where, because they've crammed so many songs onto one album, this was sort of advertised on the telly kind of thing, and yeah, they cram so many hits onto an album that they have to use an awful lot of compression to fit the songs on there, and they don't sound as good as on the sort of albums that they've come from. This is Queen the Works, Radio Gaga, I Want to Break Free, and so on. Mid-1980s. I don't have any more Queen. I can take or leave Queen. I like them in small doses, and as I say, I've got the albums here that I like, and yeah, I mean, once they started going into the late 80s, no. This is superb, and it's a great hi-fi test track. If you are, I mean, it's quite flatly recorded. It's Jerry Rafferty's City to City, so it's from 1977. It's got Baker Street on it. It's superb. I suppose, yeah, I mean, the whole thing, but you know, in particular Baker Street, because it's quite long and it's quite predictable. If your hi-fi, if your record player isn't sort of really singing at you, it can sound quite flat and boring. In fact, actually, this was the first time that I heard a Riga P3 way back in about 2003 or 2004. And I got Baker Street on, and the first thing I noticed, compared to the Gold Ring, at any rate, that I used to have, was that the fade up is actually really funky and really danceable. And once you realise that, blimey, it's actually singing at me. Get this album, even if it's just because your hi-fi needs a test album. There are just some superb tracks on here. Let me tell you some of them, shall we? Alright, so obviously Baker Street. Stealing Time at the end of side 1 is brilliant. Matty's Rag is great. City to City, the title track, is also fantastic. Just brilliant. Just brilliant. Chris Rea, On the Beach. Haven't played that for absolutely ages, but Chris Rea has sort of memories for me of being stuck in prisoner of war, no, not a prisoner of war camp, in Pontins at Brixham, doing a washing up job during my student days. The washing up job was absolutely terrible, but it was nice sort of sitting out on the grass and at the beach and listening to that on my cassette Walkman. Otis Blue, Otis Redding Sings Soul. This is on blue vinyl, it's a reissue. It's the best advert for 60s records staying firmly in mono, particularly those early 60s. Once you get up to 65, you're probably okay with any band being in stereo, but really this does not want to be in stereo. You can just tell that they've got the instruments on one track, the vocals on the other. It's a bit kind of Please Please Me with the Beatles-esque. You know, Otis Redding is always on the right-hand side. It would, I'm sure, have been better to have re-released that in mono. Atco. Very bad. REM's Automatic for the People. This is the only REM I've got on vinyl. I've got lots more on CD, but this is my. I did a review on it, but it's my sort of clutching it under your arm and going to college album, going to teacher training. I had that year. I just played Automatic for the People more or less non-stop on cassette, of course. But yeah, this is Robbie Robertson of the band. I haven't actually played this one. It's one of those albums that, and I'll show you some more in a minute, but it's one of those albums that you get and then you put it on your shelf and then you forget to play it. But he is of Native American origin, and there is an album by him that I'm trying to dredge the title up of, which I've got on CD, which is absolutely divine. And yes, it's absolutely beautiful. But as I say, I've not played this one. This one I have played, Tom Robinson's Band 2. However, I can't remember a single blooming thing about it. Tom Robinson is another one of those people that you think, oh, can I be bothered to listen to Tom Robinson? And when you make the effort, it's really fantastic. You really do want to listen to him. This one, again, is one that I found at a charity shop or something, and then got it home. But in fact, both of these would have been in the same hall, actually, Sector 27. Don't remember it. However, this one, Hope and Glory, I certainly do. Absolutely brilliant. What have we got on here? Murder at the End of the Day, Ricky Don't Lose That Number, which was a cover of Steely Dan, I want to say, I think. War Baby and Atmospherics Listen to the Radio are the two leading off singles, and they are brilliant. So, you know, these two, I've played them, I've enjoyed them, but I can't tell you anything about them. This one I certainly can, because I've played it to death and I love it. Rocky Horror Picture Show. Excellent, excellent musical. I haven't got many musicals in my collection, certainly not on vinyl, but I've got a few, and that's a good one. Diana Ross, The Boss, brilliant album. This is a reissue. It's on translucent red vinyl, if you can see that. Not sure what you can see really. I'm kneeling down in front of my camera trying to not get in the way. Brilliant. Roxy Music. Again, this is a reissue. For your pleasure, the second Roxy Music album. Absolutely great. But not as great, actually, as Roxy Music The Atlantic Years. Again, this is another greatest hits compilation. Doesn't quite suffer as much of the sort of compression thing as I was talking about when I talked about Queen's greatest hits. This one here, there's not so many tracks on it, and it's really groovy, really danceable, and it's one of those that you turn on, you put it on side one, you play side two, you think, my God, I want to play that again, so you play side one and you play side two, and yeah, absolutely fantastic. And of course, Avalon. Never be in a cocktail bar talking to someone about the 80s and then discuss Sade whilst you have a device capable of accessing eBay close at hand. Because I thought, oh yeah, she had some good singles, didn't she? I know. I was talking to a random person, actually, just someone sitting at the bar next to me, and we were just talking about about this album, and I thought, I have to have it. And then I got it home, and I thought, if this goes any slower, it's going backwards. It's got some lovely singles on it, but the rest of it is just very much of a muchness. I wrote a review about it on Ashley's blog. Ruchi Sakamoto, I have a confession to make. I'm a terrible, terrible person. Clacton Library, this came from. I borrowed it from Clacton Library. There is the bar code there. This would have been about 1988. Ryuichi Sakamoto's done an awful lot of work with David Sylvian, and that song Forbidden Colours, that you all know, is essentially Ryuichi Sakamoto's piano piece and David Sylvian's lyrics. This is fantastic. So fantastic that for some reason I didn't get a letter telling me that it was way overdue. I've never had a letter that says it's way overdue. The fines on this must be absolutely astronomical by now, but yes, and there's its filing number as well. So obviously somebody didn't miss that, put it that way. Children, don't do what I have done. Right, but this is fantastic. I want to draw your attention to a piece called May in the Backyard. It's on side 1 here. In a different arrangement, it's on Call Me By Your Name, on the Call Me By Your Name soundtrack. So if you've seen the Call Me By Your Name film, or you've got the soundtrack, part of it comes from this album. Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band. This is 9 Tonight, a live album. Again, Bob Seger, a bit like Tom Robinson. It's like, oh, yeah, oh, don't know much about Bob Seger, don't know much about Tom Robinson. Put either of them on, they're fantastic. They're fantastic. And this is a great live album. It's just a great live album. You have to be in the mood. But yeah, it's one of those few rock and roll highway kind of things from the 80s that, you know, we all got used to. A bit sort of slightly overblown rock. This album is brilliant. Sadly, Semi-Precious Weapons only did 2 albums and then they split up. Justin Tranter is the main protagonist behind the Semi-Precious Weapons. This is Aviation, and yeah, it's brilliant in a very late 2010s way. Just excellent. If you're into today's kind of dance music-y kind of stuff, yeah, it's brilliant. This is another hi-fi test track, you know, particularly the vinyl copy. The vinyl copy is not very well pressed, and there are certain hi-fi components that make this record sound like it was recorded in a ditch somewhere, and some that at least make it sound like they were standing on the pavement when they did it. You know, it's just, you know, really murky is perhaps the word I'm after, and just really not very sparkly. So, you know, it takes a certain kind of record player that's going to bring that out of the doldrums a little bit. Having said that, if it does bring this out of the doldrums, it's probably going to be a component that errs on the bright side. So if your other records that you've got are bright anyway, they might end up being a bit too bright. So it swings and roundabouts. But yeah, I certainly found the Alex R amplifier made a good meal of this. The Elicit R, this was one of these that I played at a demonstration, and I've talked about it with you before a long time ago, but the Elicit R with this just made it all a bit dull, but it was on the Riga RS3 speakers, i.e. from sort of a couple of decades ago now, and it was their basic floor standing speaker, and I've always said that the Elicit R needs a really decent pair of speakers to go with it. And if you're sort of in the bargain sort of budget basement of speakers, then don't go there with the Elicit R. You know, it needs a really good pair of speakers to make the most out of it. So Semi-Precious Weapons kind of prove that. You can't have too much of Ed Sheeran. Well, actually, yes you can. This is the A-Team. So it's not the A-Team, it's Plus that has the A-Team on it. I've got it on orange vinyl. It's probably my favourite Ed Sheeran. I've only got 3 Ed Sheeran albums. I say only, they take up a huge amount of space. They're double albums. This one is a double playing at 45, which is a slight pain because you've only got 3 songs a side. You know, albums have sort of 12 to 14 songs on them. 6 on a side is probably sort of ideal kind of thing, and you can actually make a good master of an album. It's half speed mastering for pop music, at any rate, I just think is a bit of a joke. You know, I've talked about it with the ABBA Arrival one that I've got. You know, for these 3-minute pop songs, it's just a chore having to get up and turn it over to play it. Likewise, I have Divide. I appreciate that there are other Ed Sheeran albums that have come along since, and Minus took a long time to come along, but I think that's the one that he's just released. These two, I'd say the Orange album Plus is my favourite. This one's good, I like it. This one, don't know a huge amount about it. It's another one of those that perhaps I should play, and perhaps I should take this jobby off it as well. Right, now Simon & Garfunkel. Sounds of Silence, including Homeward Bound. This is, I think, probably the Simon & Garfunkel album that most people actually would recognise as, you know, the first Simon & Garfunkel album. It's certainly the one that brought them to the world's attention. Sounds of Silence, obviously. Leaves That Are Green, Kathy's Song, Homeward Bound, I Am a Rock. Brilliant. The Graduate, as you can see, this is a second-hand jobby. Bought many years ago now. I liked the film The Graduate. This is Bookends. I've got 2 copies of Bookends. This one is a CBS Nice Price reissue. Again, the remnants of a sticker there. They're pains in the neck, these stickers are sometimes, because they end up with sometimes sleeves getting stuck together. This one here is Bookends as well. This is an original mono, which is one of my prized possessions, really. There's not much difference in terms of, you know, you're not looking for differences between the mono and stereo the way you are with Beatles albums. They're not 2 mixes. Right, this is, I think, pretty much a fold down of the stereo. But yeah, it's certainly a powerful mix. I like it. It's a bit knackered, right? So therefore, it's this one that tends to get played. This is slightly out of order, I think. Very out of order, I think. I think The Graduate, I'm not quite sure where The Graduate comes into this, but Parsley, Sage, Rosemary and Thyme, I think, should come here. Scarborough Fair being a standout track. 7 o'clock News, Silent Night. 59th Street Bridge Song. 2 copies of Bridge Over Troubled Water. One being, I think, an 80s reissue, and one being a 2000s reissue. Super duper album. Absolutely super duper. Paul Simon himself again. I've got this is knackered, this one is. This is the first Paul Simon solo album, just called Paul Simon. This is a reissue of it. That one jumps and all sorts, I think. This is an original Paul Simon, Still Crazy After All These Years. My favourite. I did a whole talk about this a long time ago now, when I first started YouTube. Superb. Paul Simon in concert, live rhyming. Greatest Hits, etc. I have that as well. But unfortunately, again, side 2, the first song on side 2 jumps. And when I get an album that jumps, I sometimes, it just puts me off from playing it. And then Simon & Garfunkel, Concert in Central Park from the early 80s, the 82 I'm getting from that. And Graceland. And that, folks, is where I stop today. Right, halfway through the S's. Thank you very much for listening, and I will see you on the next video. Remember to like, subscribe, share if you dare, and if you want to, give a thanks with the buttons down below. 1,000 thank yous. Bye.